Foreman's in the right spot.
Sponsored by Tanner's Bar and Grill, Vinnie Creekhead, Elway Power Sports of Lincoln, and Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical.
Here's Valenti dropping back, fires a pass, and it's intercepted by the Huskers at the 25, Jay Foreman. And Foreman takes it down to the 19-yard line of Oklahoma. Another big play by the Black Shirts.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Good afternoon. This is Jay Foreman after game show. Husker game just 4-0s on there. Obviously, unfortunately, you've been watching the game. Was not the best effort, best outcome, obviously, for Nebraska. Was a lot on the line. You got to give congratulations to Michigan State to pull out a victory. You know, it was a victory that was not, I'm assuming wasn't expected, but they went out and earned it, and they beat us. We did not play well. Disappointing because you had the carrot of 6 wins, and it was just looked like a little bit of a flat performance overall. Offense, defense, special teams just looked flat, looked a little off. And that happens when you're in a week-to-week basis. You have to really train these guys to understand that what you did last week has nothing to do with this week. It's kind of an NFL mentality where it's a week-to-week season, week-to-week basis, day-to-day basis, play-to-play basis, meeting-to-meeting basis, communication from coach to player, player-to-player basis. And it just didn't look like their best effort. I think that Michigan State was going to be extremely competitive. I mean, everybody all week was like, oh, well, they're cashing it in. That's not good. That never happens. Michigan State has always been a prideful program. The defense has gotten better. They've been playing hard. And if you aren't on your game, meaning if you don't give them an inch, they will break. But if the longer that you keep them around by lack of execution, lack of energy, lack of taking their confidence away, the more confidence they will gain. Now, by no means are they an offensive juggernaut or a team of a juggernaut, but a team like that, the most important thing is to play hard, play steady, and stay out of your own way. We didn't do any of those, especially in the first quarter. And some of the things that we didn't do in the first quarter came back and bite us in the butt in the sense of, yes, we went into halftime 10-10. We were lucky to do that, considering I feel how bad we didn't play or not play up to our expectations and let ourselves down. Michigan State came out in the second half, and you know a team like this, when they're in third or second and long, they're not going for first downs. Yep. They're going for touchdowns because they have nothing to lose. There is nothing that they're going to gain out of the rest of the season. And so you have to understand the mentality in order to defend them. And we just didn't do that today. And, I think the biggest thing is, yes, the fans are going to be upset. Us adults are, people that evaluate the game are going to, be upset. But more importantly, the players let themselves down. Mm-hmm. And that's more that they're the ones that go to practice every day. Those are the ones that, have to deal with everything. And that's probably the most disappointing thing.
Yeah, a really, really disappointing performance. You just look at some of the general statistics. Michigan State outgained Nebraska 295 total yards to 283. Nebraska did have 154 rushing yards compared to Michigan State, who had just 63. How about this? No penalties for the Huskers today, but Michigan State had 7. And Nebraska's defense held Michigan State to 3 of 14 on third downs. But there just weren't a whole lot of chunk plays. Like Nebraska, up until the Heinrich Haarberg run at the end, they didn't have an explosive play. Michigan State was able to, at times, just a little bit of a disappointing performance because Nebraska, it just feels like they don't know who to go to in crunch time.
It's not only that. I think Michigan State had timely plays. If you think of the Alante Brown, kind of reverse throwback, the other one, they got timely plays, not necessarily like slit your throat plays to dagger in the heart, but enough gut punches to where they got the ball into field goal range and then get a touchdown. Mm-hmm. I think the most disappointing series of the whole game was the first time that Michigan State had the ball. Clearly 2 or 3 defensive busts. And it wasn't any type of hard plays where they put you in stress. It was lack of focus. And that's probably the thing that probably lost them the game. And so, look, when you have a very slim margin of error and then you have some success by, playing to that, sometimes players can, start to feel themselves. They can start thinking about things that aren't very realistic, and it can bleed into how you practice, prepare, and then ultimately play. And so it's a very harsh learning lesson for these kids, and a harsh learning lesson that you had control of the game, had control of what your destiny, and you on your own, by lack of focus and execution against a team that you were better than on paper and had been playing better than, brought up some old demons. And so, it's going to be more of a mental check and getting yourself back in order. Anytime you go on the road, the game is going to be harder. Anytime you play a team that's desperate and back against the wall, it could be harder. And with Michigan State, that they were going to play hard. Their defense was going to play hard and have been playing hard. They just got worn out last week against Minnesota.
Yeah.
And we weren't at our top of our game defensively, even though they went 3 of 14 on third down. We just didn't look crisp. And that's actually a, feather in the cap for the defense, that we know that they can play a lot better than they played, this week. And it came back to bite us in the butt.
I think when you look at the defense, one thing that you just wish Nebraska would have done better, they had no pressure on the quarterback. They finished the game with 3 sacks. But for Hauser back there, the quarterback for Michigan State, 2 of those 3 sacks for Nebraska's defense came on the same drive at the start of the fourth quarter. And it was one by Cameron Lenhart, one by James Williams.
Yeah.
Other than that, Nebraska didn't apply pressure to the quarterback at all.
Yeah.
They allowed Caton Hauser to either stand back and make an accurate ball, many times to the opposite side of the field. But then also they would allow Caton Hauser to scramble and get some yards with his legs. Nebraska just can't apply pressure. We talked about it before we started, Jay. You rarely heard Ty Robinson today. You didn't see much Nash Hutmaker today. There just wasn't a whole lot on the front 3, front 4, front 5.
You had a couple, I think, MJ Sherman got the big holding call on him. So that's equivalent of a positive play. But overall, the defense just needed more urgency, more energy, to be more authoritative and be more of an alpha type of male mentality when you playing a game like this, because the defense has to lead the way. I always say, carry the pail of water uphill and not, have any drip out. So there was some leaky plays and they made some adjustments, but it just wasn't good enough. It wasn't up to the standard. And that's just the way that's just the way it is. When you be as disappointed as you can, right? But ultimately you have to understand this is a 12 1-week season for this team, because when you haven't won and you haven't had the accountability factor and winning factor entrenched in your program, you get games like this sometimes, which I don't think there should be, but sometimes you get them because you see the light at the end of the tunnel. You see how far you've came. You've seen the ability to win ugly last week against Purdue. And sometimes that the things that really should have hurt you didn't, and then it pops up in your face and it becomes reality. It's not a reality when you do the same things that you did this week that you did last week or the week before, but you end up winning. And so right now it's a good reality check for a lot of the guys, and they got to go back to the lab. And it's not even about a schematic thing. Yes, you could talk about play calling and all that. Yes, sure, the reads on the read option definitely was not there. You could say all that, but ultimately this is a reality check game for those players. And the faster that they come to terms with that we let ourselves down, it's not the end of the world. We can win next week. The better it would be for them individually than collectively as a team.
Another game in the Big Ten Conference just went final, and that was between the Wisconsin Badgers and the Indiana Hoosiers. Indiana wins against Wisconsin 20-14.
And they've been playing good. They had Penn State on the road. They started the season off and taken Ohio State to the middle of the third quarter. They played well, pretty much and pretty consistent all year. It's the payoff of consistently depositing good performances, good weeks at practice, being in the moment, and then you get over the hump. They have a really good player in Aaron Casey that probably should be Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten. might not be, considering that he's on Indiana, but he's been flat out unstoppable. He has a host of other defenders that they got out of the portal that fits Tom Allen's defense, and you're able to beat a Wisconsin team without Braylon Allen and without their starting quarterback. There you go. And it's no different than Nebraska teeing it up next week against Maryland. You can't go back and dig up this Michigan State loss.
Yeah.
This thing is buried. It is signed, sealed, and delivered. It is registered with the county treasurer as a death in a loss. Now what you have to do is recognize how you lost that game, get immediately back to work, because I think they do practice tomorrow or do something tomorrow, and then attention to detail, the urgency and the standard has to be up, because even though it probably was on one end, probably from the coaches, the players got to start holding themselves accountable. So they got to make sure that they don't do this next week against Maryland.
We're here for you guys. 402-464-5685. The Honda of Lincoln hotline and the Starter Heyman text line are both open to you guys. We'll field your calls and your texts all show long, as Jay and I will go up until about 4 o'clock or so before handing over the reins to Austin and Bach. Nebraska falls 20-17 against the Michigan State Spartans. Jay, I mean, you said it earlier. I think we saw the pictures on social media of the few fans that were in Spartan Stadium. It was not a full stadium.
No,
it was not.
It wasn't a whole field.
This was a bring your own energy type of game.
Right.
And Nebraska's had those. It's not like this was the first one all season long.
Yeah, you had
Nebraska needed
2 weeks ago against Illinois,
exactly.
or 3 weeks ago against Illinois. You had it.
Frankly, honestly, also, you had to bring your own energy last week at home.
Yeah.
It was a cold Saturday.
Dreary Saturday out of nowhere.
And up until Nebraska started playing, the fan base, and this is not me taking a shot, there was just not a lot of energy in Memorial Stadium.
No.
There's no excuse that in game 9 of the season that you shouldn't have to worry about bringing your own energy.
No, I mean, especially with everything on the line.
Yeah.
And, you knew you should have known that you were going to get their best shot. And if you didn't know it, you just prepare for their best shot. It just was a game that they let themselves down. And even though the flight is only an hour and 15 minutes or so, there's going to be a lot of regret on there, in the sense of, you wonder, was it the play in practice? Was it the attention to detail? Was it too much of reading social media, or was it the lack of detail or energy that I had during the game that could have possibly turned the tide? Mm-hmm. And it's just something that you got to deal with, is when you have a young team, in a young team, in a young organization, in the sense of, you have a coach, you have a program, or like what I mean is like a coaching staff, a culture of accountability and doing all those some things. Sometimes when you get on the cusp of which would be success is being bowl eligible by this time in the season, you can sometimes inadvertently and subconsciously revert back to some of the things that you've done prior. And that's the urgency of playing, the mindset of the game, understanding that even though this is a team that we should beat, we have to go out there and actually beat them and execute maybe at a higher percentage than we have before, because they are feeling like this is a time that we can upset a team that's been up on the uptick. And it's senior day. It's the last they're playing for a bigger purpose. And so we have to play for an even bigger purpose. And that's something that you have to learn. This game wasn't about physical, right? This wasn't about this isn't like we played a Alabama, Ohio State, or a team that could, just essentially when they rolled off the bus, they just have way better athletes than us. This was a mentality game and a mental game to see who could focus. And this is a learning process for the players and the coaches. And it sucks when you're going through a learning process and lose.
Yeah. It's
okay when you go through the learning process and you win 31-14 and everybody's, kind of going around and saying, like, well, how could you be mad if we win at 31-14? The coaches told you the tape wasn't as good as it looked like. So that was actually a shot over the bow for the players of, okay, we're not too sweet. Now, whoever accepted that message and then processed that message is yet to be told. Obviously, it wasn't enough people that accepted and processed that message, because you wouldn't have went out and performed like this against a team like Michigan State. And Michigan State is a team that was 2-0 before Mel Tucker got suspended/fired. So it's not a team that you think of like, hey, we could have just blew out. The defense was vastly improved, so you knew it was going to be a defensive game. you knew also offensively for them to generate some points, they were going to have to come with timely plays, off schedule plays, and things that you had to be prepared for. Maybe some things you haven't seen on tape, but you also have to think of they have Alante Brown. He's trying to have a get back game at them, but then also they're going to test your fundamentals and communication every single play, and especially when it's take a shot. And they outperform Nebraska at a high percentage in those plays.
There's a lot to unpack here. Whether it's the defensive performance, whether it's the struggling offense of Nebraska, the special teams blunders. Once again, I mean, just a disappointing day from Brian Buschini. Nebraska was unable to really flip the field all throughout the entire 4 quarters of play. Nebraska fielded punts at the 5 and 6 yard line consistently. Billy Kemp made a return specifically in the punt return game only, but just to be back there to fair catch it, number one. And then number two, on the last punt of the game, in the most crucial time, they put in Ethan Nation for the first time. And I understand that you're trying to get a return there, but Jay, I guess we can start with the punts at this point, because that was somewhat mind-boggling to me. The decision not only to put a guy that is probably not fully ready to go, but is your best punt, best guy at catching punts, if you will, back there in Billy Kemp. But you talk all season long about we're going to play football the right way and return punts, and we're going to do special teams, only to then in game 9 of the season field punts at the 6 yard line, not allow punts to try to bounce into the end zone, just special teams blunders. And then in the last punt of the game, you put in Ethan Nation for the first time.
Yeah, I don't think that really has any, is a big deal. I think the biggest thing with is, Buschini was very consistent last year. Started off a little slow and been really consistent. That's why we're talking about it. And when we needed a timely punt, he kind of hit somewhat of a golf analogy of a hosel rocket, right? We've hit those, right, under pressure. But ultimately, you need to answer the bell defensively, and you wouldn't have been in that position if you've been more consistent offensively. So it's a team game. Look, Michigan, we were not on point in all 3 facets. Were we horrible? No. Were we good? That's into the eye of the beholder. Really, that's just where we're at. And so it was a game where you had hoped that everybody just came with their game in 2 of the 3 phases. One, we didn't win any of them. You could probably argue maybe, defensively by the numbers, but then Michigan State has more turnovers and won the game. And so it's just one of those things that is extremely disappointing from where we stand. And especially me as being a former player, fan, or whatever you want to, whatever, hat you want to give me, is that for those players, I want them to experience what I knew was going to happen every single year. Go to a big bowl game, national championship or bust. Now, national championship isn't in their future this year, but going to a bowl game for some of those seniors, like the Luke Reimers and stuff like that, I wanted them to have that in their back pocket today. When we came on air at 2:23, like we did today, I wanted to be happy for them.
Yeah.
I don't need anything for myself. So I don't really care, from my standpoint, because I've been fortunate enough to do it. I want them because, I have a ton of respect for those kids. They've stuck it out. They've been kind of, in a lot of ways, dealt a deck of cards that haven't been full. You know what I'm saying? They haven't been privy to Matt Rhule and staff of believing in them, coaching them, holding them accountable, things that I had, to the utmost. So, look, today was disappointing, but the good thing about it is, which is good, but you don't want to think this way, is that you have 3 more games. You got Maryland coming into here, wounded next weekend. Definitely a winnable game. And, quite frankly, you should be landing in Lincoln, once you get, back here, pissed off.
Yeah.
And not pissed off at Michigan State. The refs weren't very good. I think the refs were very lenient for Michigan State on offensive holding and defensive holding. Maybe just expect that on the road. But pissed off in the sense of, we let ourselves down and we've came so far and we didn't get over that hump. Here's an analogy before we go to break. I always say this team and this program is at the point of when you take off in a plane, right? there might be some turbulence, right? And then now you've gotten to the point that's 5 wins, but you're starting to go through a cloudy part. And we've all been on planes. It might be dark and you just be going so there's air pockets, right?
Yeah.
But you have to either sit there and take the punches or really put that throttle down and go through the turbulence and get to it at the top of the clouds. It's sunny. That's the bowl game. That's 7, 8, 9, 10 wins consistently. And so they just have to get to that point to where they're willing to let it all hang out. Playing too conservative never gets you anywhere, because I always tell players that I coach in basketball, if you don't give me everything, it's no different than giving me nothing.
Yeah.
Because if you give me nothing, we kind of can forecast what's going to happen. If you give me like 70% or play too conservative or play not to make a mistake, you're in the same point of it giving me nothing. But if you give me everything, I can learn a lot from that. And that's in the eyes of the beholder. That's player to player, coach to coach, position to position. They got to evaluate that moving forward.
Yeah, I just think when you looked at this game, and we talked about it on the pregame show, like every game that Nebraska plays, whether it was against, and especially against these type of teams, what I mean by these type of teams is that you're not facing the top 5 team in a country right now. This is a Michigan State team that frankly you should have beaten, and you do beat if you take care of what you can control. Similar to the Purdue's, similar to the Northwesterns. And the refs and the decisions that the refs make are out of your control.
Right.
Because Nebraska, through everything,
had multiple chances.
Yeah, through all the refs' horrible decisions and missed calls. A couple of them probably kept Nebraska and gave Nebraska the benefit of the doubt. But nonetheless, there were still opportunities. And how did you respond to those?
Yeah, I think before we go to break, I think the mindset needs to be and this is probably boiled over from, say, like Frost and a little bit of Mike Riley. Instead of waiting for an opportunity, I want to go dictate the pace. Right here, if I had to say anything, we didn't dictate the pace of this game.
Oh, absolutely not.
That's where we need to get back. Forget everything else. Forget the schematics things or the refs or lack of pressure. All of it can just be put into one box. We didn't step on that field and say we are going to dictate the pace. Yeah, you can have a bad call. Okay, that's fine. We'll dictate the pace again. Okay, you missed the call on third down. Okay, we're going to dictate the pace. Oh, you supposedly gave them a touchdown catch that the guy that Dean Blandino said wasn't a catch, which he's the head of referees and an iconic figure that he's able to see things in a slow motion fashion. Somehow somebody else gave you a touchdown. Well, we're still going to dictate the pace. Yeah. That's what we need to do. We need to start focusing on ourselves, less on what everybody else. Yeah. And then we'll just go from there.
It's just the willing, or the how do they respond to adversity? And we've seen instances in previous games where they've responded well.
Yeah.
And it's just this today, they just didn't.
It's just, look, you got to really package this performance or whatever you want to call it and just leave it at that, because that's the way this is. Look, I always said this earlier on the pregame, A1 Automotive pregame show. Matt Rhule's experience in the NFL, because the NFL, and trust me, I know from experience, it's a week-to-week business.
Yeah.
That's what this team is, week to week. Now, can you emphasize and focus on some of the things that you don't want to boil over the next week? Sure. We got to have a conversation. We can't turn the ball over this rate because we're not creating as that many turnovers. And that's what's going to happen. Michigan State says, as long as we play keep away, we'll be fine. Yeah. So we have to adapt that mentality. So there's just things that they need to address and really focus on. And look, when you land here, it's got to, by the time you touch down, that game has got to be flushed out of your system, in the sense of all the emotional baggage attached to this game needs to be gone, but you can't forget it. It's almost like I can forgive myself, but I'm not going to forget, because when you don't forget it, it's going to push you to do better. So if I'm on you, say I'm a coach and you're a player, Nick, in the middle of next week, I can just reference what we just did a week ago. How do you feel about that? It's the same thing I've been talking to you about maybe since Purdue game, maybe since Northwestern game. Now I have your attention, and now I have your attention, we'll put on a better performance against Northwestern here in a week's time.
Yeah.
Or not Northwestern, excuse me, Maryland.
Maryland, yeah. By the way, I mean, you talk about the pace and just urgency. There wasn't a whole lot of urgency even down the stretch. Even when Nebraska was down 2 scores, 20-10 in the halfway part of the fourth quarter, there wasn't a whole lot of urgency.
Well,
it didn't seem like they had a plan of what they wanted to do.
It's a good analogy of this. It's almost basketball season. It's a team that comes out flat, that's better than another team, and you start to make a comeback and you get close, right? And you're within 3 points and you miss a free throw. And then you don't foul on time. And you're supposed to push the ball to try to get a 2-for-1, and you don't have the urgency. That's the analogy right there. We didn't have the urgency and the attention to detail all go into the same box in the same place, because if you have urgency, you'll have their attention to detail, the game management and the time of the possession and the time of the game will all flow together. So it's just something that they got to come to terms with and, really emphasize, but then also, step up and be better at, because some of the things that Michigan State did defensively against our offense, even though Maryland's defense isn't, 85 Bears-ish, they're going to try to do next week because they've seen it really work, on the road against Michigan State.
Yeah. By the way, in that third quarter was a very important quarter, because as Jay said, I mean, that was also an opportunity to kind of reset the energy. You didn't come out in the first half with a whole lot of urgency.
Yeah,
you could.
Well,
come
the defense didn't get the party started,
and that's exactly what I was going to say.
That's all there is to it.
Michigan State in that third quarter took up over 10 minutes of the game clock.
Yeah,
you couldn't get off the field, and when you did, your offense couldn't get more than 3 plays going.
But that was it. We had the ball to start the third quarter, and we kind of dookie down our legs. They kept it and played keep away. They went 4 corners, essentially in the third quarter of an NBA game, and really put you to sleep. And then before you could get your energy up and get that urgency back, the game was over. And so that's just clock management, game management, in a way of trying to eke out a win, where they saw Nebraska not coming out of the the locker room with the urgency. If Nebraska was able to get at least 3 points in that first drive or two, it's a totally different game. And that's why points are a premium. That's why mindset, attitude, urgency is even higher than that, because talent-wise, you're not going to be out-talented down the stretch. It's going to come down to mentality, execution, and mindset these next 3 games.
All right, so once again, 402-464-5685. I'm sure we're going to hear from Matt Rhule here in just a few minutes. We'll also field your texts and calls. Let's go ahead and take a break, Jay. When we come back, let's go to the text line, because we have a lot of opinions and thoughts on the text line that we definitely want to get to, as well as any phone calls that come in over the next couple of minutes. And then truly in the 3 o'clock hour, we can really listen to Matt Rhule talk a little bit about the quarterback, because the quarterback certainly was one of the many positions and situations that struggled today. But go ahead, Jay, send us away.
Well, we're going to go to break. We're going to come back and then maybe get some Matt Rhule audio, or we'll hear the audio and then tell you what you said, and then we'll evaluate that. But this is Jay Foreman Postgame Show, I think brought to you by Tanner's, and we'll be right back.
Ever wish you had another light switch on the other side of the room on a dark night? How much better would you sleep at night if you had a ceiling fan in your room? The High Electric Service Department is here to make your electrical what-ifs a reality. Whether you're looking to replace some outdated light fixtures or brighten up your counters with under-cabinet lighting, High Electric can handle all types of residential electrical installations and services. Give Erica a call at 402-466-6606 or visit high-electric.com to get started. If you struggle with joint pain, there's good news. You don't need surgery to get back to full health. South Point Medical and Aesthetics offers breakthrough non-surgical options for treatment of moderate to severe joint pain. Our patients experience little to no downtime from our procedures, and the results are remarkable. They've had 14 years of successful treatments with patients from 35 states because of an effective word-of-mouth traffic. Learn more about how you can get lasting results for joint pain today at southpointmedical.com or call 402-323-8400.
Hi, this is Cameron Hall, owner of Doors Plus. If you're looking to upgrade your garage door, my team and I are here to help. Doors Plus represents 5 major garage door manufacturers, so you have plenty of options when looking to upgrade. Doors Plus prides itself on a fast but reliable service with a 3 to 5 week lead time to complete your entire project. We have multiple commercial installation crews in order to get your project done efficiently and correctly. Give Doors Plus a call for your new new commercial garage door at 402-590-5800 or visit us online at DoorsPlusLLC.com. Doors Plus, garage doors and more.
The holidays are drawing closer, and there's not many things better than getting the gift of relaxation. Not just for yourself, but for anyone in your life. During November, for every service you get at the Body Shop, you get entered into their drawing for a free massage gift certificate equal to your last service. This goes all the way to the week before Christmas, so book your appointments now at thebodyshoplincoln.com and treat yourself and loved ones today. The Body Shop at 48th and A.
When you were a kid, clubs were cool. Robotics club or space club and stuff like that. But what do adults get? Book clubs and quilting clubs? No, forget that. How about a margarita club? Get to Upside Bar and Lounge and join the best club in town. 10 flavors of margaritas like Maui Wowie, burnt pineapple, and mango tango. Try all 10 of them and receive your own souvenir margarita glass. Make it your new Monday night tradition. $4 margaritas and $4 taco baskets. Grab the crew and head on over Monday nights or any night. Upside Bar and Lounge at 29th and Pine Lake.
The Stars are back home on November 4th to take on the Cedar Rapids Rough Riders at the Icebox. It's the first visit for Cedar Rapids to the capital city since 2019, and it's also military night with a post-game jersey auction to follow. Lock in your seats today by heading to LincolnStars.com.
WWE Friday Night SmackDown returns to Lincoln, January 12th, 6:45 p.m. Pinnacle Bank Arena.
Let's throw down right now.
See Rey Mysterio, LA Knight, Bobby Lashley, The Street Profits, Charlotte Flair, Io Sky, Carlito, and more. It's WWE's Friday Night SmackDown in Lincoln, January 12th. Tickets start at $25 and on sale now. Ticketmaster.
It takes a great game plan to win a football game each week, and right now, it's time to plan a trip to get a new car at Mullen Motors. Just like on the football field, there's a wall of defense on the way to Mullen Motors. 48th Street is under construction from Layton all the way to Cornhusker Highway. But the lot at Mullen Motors is full of tons of great vehicles to drive home this fall for the ultimate touchdown. Mullen Motors, still open through road construction at 48th and Walker.
No taglines, just quality vehicles. Mullen Motors.
Get rid of pesky critters once and for all with Bats to Rats. Their expert team is here to help you reclaim your home. No more sleepless nights caused by crawling critters or flapping wings. Bats to Rats ensures a safe environment for every family member. Check the website at batstoRats.com for amazing offers, and if you mention this ad, you'll receive $10 off your initial inspection cost. Don't allow uninvited guests to take over your home. Trust Bats to Rats for a peaceful and rodent-free living space.
Jay Foreman Postgame Show. Sponsored by Tanner's Bar and Grill, Vinny Kreekak, Elway Power Sports of Lincoln, and Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical. On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
What up? We got the Jay Foreman post-game show. We are here at the bottom of the 2 o'clock hour. First 30 minutes down the hatch. Hopefully out of our system here pretty good. Matt Rhule is at the podium talking about one thing I heard when I walked into the producer's studio behind us is that you just didn't have it today. Just didn't have our, I guess A game. Couldn't break through, and that's the perfect description of it. One thing about Matt Rhule, I think he's very aware of the situation, the team, the program, and knew it just was not our best effort. And we couldn't make that play or have that series or be consistent enough for back-to-back series or back-to-back situational football. That means offense, defense, special teams to put us in position to, get ahead of the chains, ahead of the scoreboard, and possibly, win the game. And so it's, definitely disappointing. I mean, anytime you lose is disappointing, you know what I'm saying? There's never a time that when you lose at something that you put so much into and work for that you lose or that you feel, okay, oh yeah, I'm cool with that. Right. And, especially when it's the situation of it where you feel like you can really do something that hadn't been done. It would have been a pretty good feat for a coach coming in here, less than a year ago and putting together a team, dealing with injuries, dealing with the situation of the football program that's been going in this direction, for quite some time. And today was a day and a big step in the right direction. So, ultimately, there's a lot of things that you can unpack, right? I'm a firm believer that the defense is good enough against this offense of Michigan State that you could have possibly pitched a shutout. Just felt like we were just a little off. We've seen it the first drive. Guys that usually make plays or don't make mental mistakes made, quite frankly, two huge mistakes. And that's the lack of focus. Is that dealing with success? That's what I think is the hardest thing. Listen, if there's one thing that's been fostered in let's say, I don't know what the description is, when you build it up and it's like a disease, like fumigated or whatever, I don't even know, whatever has been the perception of success around here. And then it boils over into some of the players and how do you deal with it? You win 3 games. You haven't done it before. Went undefeated in October. Okay, you're still at 5.
Yeah.
Do you start believing the hype? Do you think it's a foregone conclusion that you're going to go up to East Lansing and win? And you lay an egg or don't play up to your standard. And that's been something that's been fostering, for a while around here. And it's been something that the guys that have been successful have been telling you, like, you need to pump the brakes a little bit. So sometimes the harsh reality of something that's been maybe coming your way for a few weeks pops up to you at the right time. And maybe this is the right time. And we just didn't play up to our standard. And that's, as bad as it is right now, right? Frustrated.
Yeah.
They should be they're more frustrated. But ultimately, it's good that they're frustrated. One, because they care. They understand the things that they didn't do and the ramifications of what they didn't do. And this coaching staff and say like leadership has been able to get these guys refocused and be able to bounce back. And starting, probably after having the locker room talk, you need to be getting on that plane or bus, telling each other that's never going to happen again, and then show up with a new attitude and a new mindset come next time you're at practice.
Once again, 402-464-5685. We're getting a lot of texts about the quarterbacks. Heinrich Haarberg finished today's game 12 of 28, good for a 43% completion percentage for 129 passing yards, no touchdowns, and 2 INTs. We're going to get to that. Matt Rhule was asked about Heinrich Haarberg, and here's what he had to say after the Michigan State game.
I'd have to watch the tape to see Heinrich. I thought he ran the ball ran the ball well at times, made some good explosive plays. So I know he competed. He brought us back. I'd have to just go back and watch the tape. I know those last 2 look at the ball was knocked out of his hand. So you guys probably had a better vantage point on the replay than I do from the field. So I'd have to go back and see what exactly that was and why those things happened.
Here's one thing I will say, Jay, and we talked about it before we came on the post-game show. Regarding Heinrich Haarberg, I would push back a little bit and say that he didn't run all that well. There was the one play late in the game where he ran it, I think it was like 43 yards, got it down to the 4-yard line. That was really the only time we saw Heinrich Haarberg really be able to explode for at least a minimal gain.
Yeah.
Other than that, the option, the I formation doesn't look good. The speed option doesn't look good. He's not drawing defenders like he probably should be, and then tossing it. I mean, he's predetermining every little thing he does, it feels like, whether it's in the run game or whether it's in the passing game.
Yeah, I think what people need to understand, Heinrich is in a sticky situation. And you have, listen, if you know me, if I was coaching, me and him I would be waiting for him at the sideline.
Yeah.
Number one, because I know for a fact you're better than that, right? So that's why I'm going to be all up in your junk. But also, as a former player, he's in and the only reason I can say this, I've been in those situations. I've been in those shoes. Now, I was able to kind of, and had the coaching and my dad there that kind of literally pushed and like threw me over the edge to get through it. Here's where he's at. And this is just my guess, right? And this is, well, actually, I'm just going off what I see. So
yeah,
maybe it's something different. I see a young kid where you have to understand where he came from. Came from a small school, came here, was kind of just put on the shelf. Then you brought in a new offensive coordinator last year that purposely didn't coach him and didn't think he could play. That's his opinion. That's his prerogative. Here comes a new coach. He gets an opportunity, worked really hard to be in favor of the coaches, and then he wins, not wins, but he starts to win a few games, and he's the starting quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. So now you start to think about things that aren't necessarily in 2023. Are they going to bring somebody else in? They signed a quarterback from Bellevue West. Will they be? They need to go to the portal and get 2 or 3 quarterbacks. Yes, he's winning, but his throwing. You start to hear those things, and also see it because he watches the same tape that we watch, and then you start to play too tight. Then you start to run not to make a mistake. Then you start to look like kind of a robot. Listen, I will tell you this, and granted, the fact that I'm telling you this makes it more frustrating. He is one of the best athletes I've seen in late highs on. He's 6'4", 225 pounds, 4.5 to 4.6 speed, 40-inch vertical, has quicks and all do that. He hasn't made anybody miss. No. So that lets me know he is kind of thinking while he's running. I would tell him, get out of your head, do exactly what you're doing, and let your do exactly what you've been coached to do, and let your athletic ability take over. That's why he looks so robotic in the option. That's why when he pitches the ball, it's so late and there's 4 guys there.
Yeah.
It's controllable, but it's a mentality thing. This is not a physical thing with this team. It's a mentality and a mental thing. And it's that little like minute difference of taking the next step, continuing to get better every week, stepping up when you need to, embracing the moment is that thin in the difference in the circumstances, or you pushing yourself through it and just saying, bump it. And it's not that you don't care, but it's like, hey, listen, when he watches that tape, I can guarantee you he's like, man, I can play better than that.
Yeah.
I can be faster down the line on the option. I can be a more like scary when I run in the option. My footwork can be better. I can really have my back foot when I'm throwing a ball on the ground so I can actually stride with accuracy and all that stuff. That has nothing to do with talent.
It's fascinating that you say that because it kind of feels like the complete opposite of what we saw against Northern Illinois. And obviously the opponent is a little bit better in Michigan State.
And the situation is different too.
The situation is there's more pressure.
Things has changed.
But instead of him trying to, because we saw it when he's lowering his shoulder, when he's running hard, when he ran in Northern Illinois, it looked completely different.
Right.
Because he's fighting for an opportunity to play in that case rather than trying to salvage his job.
I think it's a little bit different. It's his first one. He didn't know any better. Listen, he's taken a lot of hits since then.
Yeah.
So he's probably maybe a little dinged up more than we even know, and more that he's willing to put on. But also, I think the dynamics has changed. He's won 4 games out of the 5, right?
Yeah.
Or 5 out of
he's 5 out of the 7.
Well, he's won 5. Listen, every win he's been the quarterback.
Yeah.
So that provides a different type of pressure. It's different if he knows he's only going to play a week or two, and Jeff Sims is going to come back and be the starter without a doubt, because then you're going to get more of what you got. Now he's gone on this train or trail of being the starter, your expectations and how you prepare and all that stuff starts to become different. That's what he's dealing with right now. And sometimes and the only reason I can speak 100% factual about this is because I went through it. Where you're trying to play too perfect and not turn the ball over, you end up doing the same thing that you're trying to guard against.
Yeah. Matt Rhule, once again, post game. Here's something that Jay was talking about earlier: learning to play with expectations. Here's what the head coach had to say after Michigan State.
Yeah, I thought our ball security and all those things that have been plaguing us, snaps on the ground, I thought was so much better, right? I thought it was significantly better in the game. But to your point, we never took the ball away. At the end of the game, we can't have those things happen. We have to make those plays. And so there'll never be an excuse for being -3, right? It's -3 and you lose by 3. You're probably a better football team than that. So as I said to our guys, our guys, we're a good football team. We're finding out what it's like to play games with consequences late in the year. When you come in after winning a couple games, you're finding out they're finding out for the first time that people are ready for you. They're not They did not pay attention to you all week. They studied you all week. And you're going to have to fight, scratch, and claw, and not just assume, well, we've stopped them for 2 drives, we're going to get them going now, or hey, we ran the ball. The first drive coming out of halftime, we had 30 yards rushing on the drive, and then we sputter. So there's a lot more lessons to learn from this game. It's painful, but they have to learn them.
I mean, learning how to be, like in my case, learning how to be a consistent and better pro sucks. Learning how to be an actual winner sucks, because there's sometimes some doubt and letdowns along the process. It's not going to be easy. If it was easy, Matt Rhule wouldn't be here. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That means anybody and everybody could do it. And some guys that, you got to think Heinrich Haarberg is a freshman out there playing. He's been on campus for 3 years. He's a freshman, never played. And up until last year, not really coached. And so it's a different situation. And learning how to deal with realistic expectations is very, very hard, because you have to deal with some things that aren't in your control, but you do control them, right? Your perception, how people view you, your effort, your energy, your urgency, your mindset. Those are things you control. But then also some of the things you don't control is everybody expecting you to win, going on a road against a like team. That means even though Michigan State going into this game was 2-5, they're no different than Nebraska. They really aren't. They played some close games. They went down to Iowa City and almost won. They went neck and neck with Minnesota, who beat Nebraska all the way into the middle of the third or fourth quarter, right? So they're a competitive team, even though it hasn't looked good. Now they got blown out in some games, but so is Nebraska against Michigan. That's the hardest part. Getting on the plane and playing a faceless opponent, and the biggest opponent is the one that you see each and every day.
You look at just the drive chart for Nebraska, because we got a text on the text line 402-464-5685. Earthquake Glue says, don't blame Heinrich for everything. Satterfield had him throwing way too much. What I would say is this: at some point, Nebraska is going to have to figure out whatever it is on offense, whether that's running the ball, whether that's throwing the ball. I don't think anybody cares. Just figure out a way to get something going, because Jay, let me tell you this. So at the start of the third quarter, up until when there was 6 minutes and 8 seconds left on the clock in the fourth quarter, here's how Nebraska's drives went. 6 plays, 29 yards. And it resulted in a punt. 3 plays, -4 yards. 3 plays, 1 yard. 3 plays, 3 yards. 6 plays, 41 yards, ended an interception. There's nothing. You're sputtering on offense as a whole. It's not that there was, I mean, you can talk about play calling all you want, but at some point, the correct football decision has to be made by the players, right? You can't have Anthony Grant dancing in the backfield when you need somebody to go north-south.
Right.
You can't have Heinrich Haarberg trying to take a shot downfield when there's a wide open Malachi Coleman going across the field on a crossing route, or a Thomas Fidone on a short drag route. Was the play calling perfect? Absolutely not. And I've been as critical on Marcus Satterfield at times as anybody this season. But at some point, the players have to make a play.
Yeah.
And especially later in the game, and this is kind of something I said at the start of the show, towards the end of the game, you have to start thinking about players. Right. Who do you want to put the ball in the hands of? Who do you trust the most to go make a play? I get that injuries have hurt Nebraska's offense, and Nebraska's offense is banged up. But at some point, the pride has to be there. This offense has to get tired of saying, we're tired of being discussed as the worst of the 2 or 3 facets on our team.
Right.
And you have to go make a play. And it's in a game where Michigan State, who is a mediocre opponent right now and an unstable program with an interim head coach, they're giving you countless opportunities. And as an offense, you respond with 9 plays in 3 straight possessions for a total of 0 yards. What do you expect to happen? You can't expect to win ball games if no adjustments are made in the IQ department, in the decision-making department, or the preparation department.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% correct. I mean, the players, look, the coach's job is to call the plays for what they've studied and can guess what's going to happen. the execution factor has to take a huge step forward.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and again, people, when you say mindset, how you prepare, that's not a tangible asset, right? You know what I'm saying? Because tangible assets to the regular fan is me throwing it to Nick for an 80-yard bomb.
Yeah.
That's tangible. But your mindset has to be right to understand the point of the game that you're in, your opponent, and what you need to do to get done to have a successful offense, right? Take whether you think Marcus Satterfield or the caller or the texter thought it was too much.
Yeah.
Here's the perk. Okay, you're calling it. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean everybody was covered.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't really say it was too many pass plays because there was a couple guys that were open. It just wasn't executed to high enough percentage.
And there's also no excuse for the inability to pass. I mean, because it just looks somewhat, I mean, there's just no ability to throw at all on a very friendly day for throwing the ball. I mean, you're talking in the early months or early days of November, it's 48 degrees and 0 wind. I mean, less than 5 miles per hour of wind.
Yeah, I mean, weather wasn't a factor. It was just Nebraska was off. The execution wasn't at a high enough percentage on a consistent basis. It just wasn't. The rhythm was off, whether you want to say play calling and all that. Okay, yeah, I could deal with it. I can understand that, but also can think like, the only thing I would say is maybe the compilation of plays. Yeah. When you were calling it, when you were doing it, right? Okay, like the rhythm of plays.
Personnel as well can be on the coach.
You could do all that, but really at the end of the day, if you called 100 pass plays and there's guys running open, your job is to hit them.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then you know what else? Your job is to catch it. There's a big third down. I think a receiver missed it right in his hands.
Alex Bulk, that was
okay. So you got to beat press coverage. That's what they're going to play. They've shown you we're going to be up in your face all game. We're going to sell out against the run. Win. Yeah. Okay, you won. Now guess what you got to do when you win? Catch it. That has nothing to do with play calling.
Yeah.
That has to do with execution. So the execution and then also taking what the defense is willing to give you and just making the simple play has to be infused into a few guys. And that happens. And the mindset, here's what I talk about mindset. Your mindset in the I guess say 20 to 20, or say from the 20-yard, your own 20-yard line into the opponent's, let's say 30-yard line is different than when you're 30 and going in. Your mindset is different if you have the ball starting at the 40-yard line from a punt or a turnover versus starting at your own 4-yard line. Your mindset in execution has to be different. Your mindset during a 2-minute drill or 4-minute drill going into halftime is different than coming out of halftime. There's like 10 different types of mindset you have to have. That's what makes sports hard. So, look, I see it right there. Austin, we got our first caller in, man. Look, I think people are probably still like confused that we did lose the game and they're probably, drinking right now, but we got Tony on the line. Tony, what's happening?
What up, Jay? How are you?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Hey, I'm doing good, brother. Hey, I want to talk about Haarberg and his development throughout the season, and if you think we should continue down this path or try something different.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think it's Tony was right. Is like I think it's going to be something that's going to be discussed. I think, look, for me as a player, and I've had plenty of bad games, right? So it's easy to get on here and act like I've never missed a tackle or something. You don't want the hook to be so quick because you didn't play up the standard. But I think that I would venture to say that could we have blocked better? Could we have got over? Could we have more energy in our route running? I could say that the urgency in route running wasn't there. Right. And that's a learning process because you have some young guys that, quite frankly, would be in the state playoffs. And we're just coming down the stretch of the season. The freshman guys.
Yeah.
We had guys drop balls. We had guys not get open fast enough. Right. But then the quarterback has some inaccuracy issues. I think you always coach all the quarterbacks getting